Hi, welcome to Soul Dialogue, where every conversation leads to transformation. I am your host, Lisa Coleman. Soul Dialogue is the process of radical self awareness and the courage to explore the origins of your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, and your experiences that shape who you are and how you show up in the world. Soul Dialogue was birthed through my healing journey where I discovered what my soul is. I discovered that my soul is the seat of my thoughts, my emotions, and my will. And what that means is that I am more than just what you see when I show up. I'm more than just a human being. There is an internal part of me and part of you that will live in eternity. And that is your soul. So Soul Dialogue is deep love for oneself. Soul Dialogue is radical self-awareness. Soul Dialogue is the process of where you discover who you are and why you were created. Soul Dialogue was birthed through my healing journey, as I stated, and I discovered that my soul was broken. I discovered that my soul was fragmented, that there were pieces of me all over the place. And I discovered that was because of trauma. And many of us don't understand the effects of trauma and how it alters your soul. We don't understand that trauma affects our identity. It affects our voice. It affects how we show up in the world. It affects how we feel about ourselves, right? It affects the choices and the decisions that we make. When there is trauma alters and changes you in ways that you have no idea. And so as a person who was born and raised in church, the soul or my soul was not something that was focused on. The focus was on the sin. The focus was on no smoking and no drinking and no cursing. The focus was on not having sex. The focus was on no fornication, no adultery. The focus was on my external and how I dressed and how I looked. I couldn't wear fingernail polish. I couldn't wear toe polish. I couldn't wear makeup because if I wore makeup, it made me appear to be a Jezebel, right? This red lipstick that I have on right now was definitely a no-no because definitely I was a Jezebel if I were to wear this lipstick back in the day. And so being born and raised in church, the soul was not the focus. The soul being saved was not the focus, right? The focus was on the sin. And with the focus being on the sin, my soul was cultivated, right? It was cultivated in sin, right? Because that's all I heard. Sunday after Sunday, Tuesday after Tuesday, Friday night Tarian service after Friday night Tarian service, in Sunday school, from month to month, from year to year. That's all that I heard was sin. The love of God was never taught, but hell, fire, and brimstone was taught. And so that was cultivated in my soul, and it affected my thoughts, my emotions, and my will. And when you mix that with trauma, when you experience trauma, and then you hear every day, all day, in church and out of church, that you're going to hell for anything that you do, my soul was cultivated in condemnation and shame. It was cultivated in guilt. It was cultivated in the spirit of fear. So I lived my life in fear, in shame, in guilt, in condemnation. And that's all that I knew. And all of that affected my voice. So much so to the point where if there was a picture in the dictionary of the definition or picture of a child being seen and not heard, my face would be there. Every time I entered a room, I would identify a spot where I could go and I can sit and I could disappear in the room. Trauma affected me so much to the point where I had no confidence in myself, where I had vacant esteem. And vacant esteem means no worth or no value, right? So I felt that I had no worth. I felt that I had no value. And that is what trauma does. That is what fear breeds. That is what condemnation and guilt and fear, it festers in those waters, and it digs its roots deep into your psychology, into your psyche, into your prefrontal cortex, where you rationally think and make sound decisions. Those things get into your hippocampus. Those things get into your body. It gets into your cell, and your cell memory begins to remember the fear and the shame and the condemnation and the guilt. It alters your genes, right? So soul dialogue is a radical self-awareness where you discover the origins of the thoughts and emotions and those things that prompts you to make certain decisions that are not the best for you, or that are not the best for you if you have children, right? And so because I was broken, because I experienced this trauma, it prompted me to make decisions that were not good for me, right? Everything that I thought, the decisions that I made, it was through a lens of fear, right? It was through a lens of shame and condemnation and guilt. Every decision that I made, I saw it through brokenness, right? I saw it through my soul being fragmented, right? And so about 2009, I would say around the end of 2009, I started on my healing journey that culminated in about the year of 2020 or 21. And during that 10 to 11 year journey, I learned so many things about myself. I went through a total transformation of me being me, how I thought about myself, how I showed up in the world. I even had to get a therapist, right? Because deliverance, you can go through deliverance and you can understand and comprehend the truth of who you are, why you're here. But by the time you get to that point, the trauma has already made an imprint. So there has to be a total transformation of who you are. There has to be an unpacking of all of those things that you thought and those emotions that were connected to those thoughts. All of those things were moments that I had to sit in, right? I didn't stay there. I sat in those moments of brokenness and all of the trauma that I experienced. I sat there and I processed out all of those things that had happened to me, that caused me to be broken, that caused me to be fragmented. And that's what Soul Dialogue is. Soul Dialogue was birthed through my healing journey, and I'm so excited and I'm so happy that God allowed me the opportunity to walk through that healing journey, right? It wasn't easy. It wasn't fun. It didn't feel good. There were moments of loneliness. There were moments of despair. There were moments where I was stripped of everything that I had, everything that I thought was important. I was stripped of all the material things, right? It had even gotten to the point where I experienced an Abraham moment, right? Where I sensed the Holy Spirit telling me to move, right? I didn't understand why I felt that I needed to move. I thought that I was moving to start a new path, a new journey. I moved and I thought that I would never come back to Chicago, but I discovered that God had me to move away so that he could deal with me, right? So that he could heal me, so that he can show me during that 11-year process what it means for your soul to be healed. He showed me how our souls become broken, how our souls become fragmented because of sin, and that sin resonates or lives in our souls, right? That's the origins of sin, right? Whatever is on the inside of your soul is how sin is presented. It doesn't start just from the physical or the physical representation of your behavior on the outside. That's not the beginning of the sin. The beginning of the sin is what's in your soul, right? It's the seeds that were planted in your soul. And believe it or not, from the time that you're in your mother's womb, and scientific research has shown that a baby's mind, when a baby is in the womb, its mind begins to process information that it receives from the outside world. So from the time you're in your mother's womb to the time you come out to your infant years and your pre-adolescent years and your adolescent years, those are the seeds that are sown that shape who you are, that shape your personality, that shape how you will begin to make decisions, that shape whether or not your voice is invested in. Those are the moments and the times where you understand or begin to understand your environment. Right? It's where you learn your language. Those moments and those times are where you learn love or not. Right? Those moments and those times are where you learn responsibility, where you learn to become social. All of those times are where the seeds are sown that shape you into who you will become, or to who you show up as a teenager into your adult years, right? So soul dialogue is a radical self-awareness of who you are, why you are the way you are, why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel, and why you move in the world the way you move in the world. That's what soul dialogue is. And I'm grateful for those moments. I'm grateful for me taking that journey, because had I not taken that journey, I wouldn't be sitting right here today, right? If my family members or any of my friends were around, they will tell you I was one of the most quiet people in the family. I didn't have much to say. I didn't have the confidence to say anything. So for me to be sitting here with my own podcast called Saya Dialogue is a miracle in itself. And I am so grateful. And so as we begin to have more episodes and we begin to dig deep into soul dialogue and the effects that it has on your life in every area of your life, you'll begin to see that soul dialogue really is radical, right? Because it's an inner self-awareness that we are not taught to do. We are not taught to self-assess ourselves, right? We are not taught to look inwardly, right, at our behavior, at our thoughts and our emotions. We aren't taught that. But soul dialogue was created. It's a sacred moment that gives you that opportunity to look inward, radical self-awareness, to look at everything you've ever done in your life, to reflect, to think back on decisions that you made and think about, well, maybe I shouldn't have made that decision, right? It's even present where as you are currently living your life, soul dialogue will condition you and train you to be aware of every thought that comes to your mind. It will condition you to think about, should I say that? Is that productive? Will that be fruitful? Am I helping anybody if I say that? What are the consequences if I say that? How is the people around me going to receive it? Right? So that's what soul dialogue is. And so I'm grateful and I'm thankful that you have taken the opportunity to view it, to listen, and to really think about Soul Dialogue and and what it could mean to your life, how it could affect your life, and how you can apply it to your life. And so thank you, and I look forward to the next episode, and I'll see you next time in Soul Dialogue. Bye.